Hey everyone, TNRI here, and our guest today is Frans, the co-founder of BIYU, the Netflix of everything. They're based in Amsterdam and soon to be expanding across the whole Netherlands. But let's ask Frans what they do. You're the co-founder of the Netflix of things.
Yeah.
Currently started in Amsterdam, but
Correct.
gonna be expanding soon as well, yeah?
Yes, actually, I hope to sign a contract, a lease for Utrecht within the next 5-6 days. So Utrecht will be our second city outside of Amsterdam.
Cool. And in a couple of sentences, like what do you do?
We are a platform, an product access platform that provides you access to products that you occasionally need. So what we're aiming for is that we as consumers stop buying products that you use maybe once, twice, 3, 4 times per year. They're sitting idle somewhere in the corner or under the staircase or wherever you store your stuff, if you have storage at all in big cities. They just sit there being idle, doing nothing. You spend a few €100 on these, and there's other people who want to use it when you are not using it, and they're going to buy the same product and they're going to do exactly the same. And I think by now everybody is aware of the fact that, at one point in time there's no more stuff in our planet that we can take out and use to build products from. So if we become a bit smarter by making products work very well on a daily basis, and instead of buying it, sharing it with each other, then I think we're making a huge step towards a more sustainable living.
Yeah, it's a great concept because it's also it's sustainable, but also kind of gives the community feeling of sharing with each other.
Yeah, and we've also really tried. We're a business, right? So we're not an NGO. We're not. We wanna build a business because we think sustainability can also be big business, and we actually think that all big businesses in the future will be sustainable companies. But at the same time, I agree with you. The whole community thing is very important. So give people a place where they feel like, hey, we're doing something good here. We also play on that a little bit. So for example, if people use the product from our platform or from our catalog, we also ask them to return it in a proper way. We ask them to clean it as good as they can, of course. We don't ask people to clean it for an hour if it's really dirty, because we know how to clean most products very efficiently. But we tell them, look, the better you clean it, the faster we can move the product around and turn it around to the next user that wants to use it. So for us, the community thing is very important for that matter. But also, of course, if you want to grow fast, having word of mouth and having a working referral program is really important, and therefore your community is super important.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And the service is pretty simple, either on the website or on the app. People can order things.
Yeah, well, that was not like that in the beginning, because in the beginning, of course, we thought everything needs to be in the app, and then there are still tons of people that don't want to have apps on their phones immediately. So we've learned the hard way, I would say. So we started with app only and only access to products through membership, and along the way we figured out that there's actually a big group of people that prefer to order something through a browser on their laptop, who might consider downloading the app if they really like the service, if they know the service and understand the service, but definitely not on day one. So we opened it for web, and then we also figured out that a subscription on a catalog or a subscription on a platform. Well, 2.5 years ago, when we did our market research, everybody was raving about subscriptions. Not only investors and shareholders, but also consumers. I think over the last 2.5 years that changed, because what we found once we had the subscription live and we were going and we had a good steady flow of new customers coming in, members coming in because they had a membership, we also found that there were even more people who had an interest in the products, but were like, dude, subscription, no. I mean, I just want to rent it from you, but I don't want a subscription. So that's the last big thing that we changed, or pivot. I'm not sure if it's a pivot. It felt like a pivot because we had to sort of step away from our own belief that the membership was the thing. So I think pivot is the correct definition here. The correct word is that we now offer rental without membership. And what we can see is that there is indeed people that prefer to rent without any strings attached afterwards. But at the same time, there is a group that still comes in as members and they prefer to have a membership. And they did the calculations like real Dutch people do, Mm-hmm. And so, okay, 120 euros a year. If I do 5 things, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense for me. So they sign up for membership. But there's a lot more people that want to try us first, test us first, before they commit to something like a subscription. And I think for us it was very important to launch this feature, that rental without membership, because when we were trying, and we still do, but we do it less obvious, selling a membership, you're selling something very new. People don't really have a comparable thing next to it. They can't say, oh, it's like this or like that. It was pretty new, especially across the categories that we are offering. And right now we have moved ourselves into a rental space, and everybody knows rental. So suddenly people can sort of like, okay, so it's a rental platform. Even though I would love to say now it's a product access platform. For a lot of people it's a rental platform. And then the good thing is the rental market is such an old-fashioned market. I mean, if you go to the big rental companies, first you have to go to a website, then you have to fill in a form, then you're going to get a phone call from them, then you have to send another email, then you need to have a credit card, then you need to go there, and then you need to park there, and these days it's paid parking. I mean, it's such an incredibly like 1980s journey that digitizing that whole journey, going from 10, 15 interactions to 5 clicks, and then have the product delivered to your doorstep and picked up after use. That's like a revolution in itself, right? So the whole thing of moving us into that, let's say, known realm of rental has really helped, I think, to get a lot more customers coming to us and use our product. Yeah. Maybe a long answer to a short question, but
that's a good one. And what was the decision behind transporting with the cargo bikes?
Yeah, I think so. You're from The Hague, right? So I think if you take the bike now from here and you drive, no, you do it in the morning. So in the morning, let's say around 9, you take your bike and you cycle through the city. Every bloody 50 meters you have to stop because there is a white van delivering something, whether it's DPD, TNT, PostNL, I mean, you name it, they're everywhere. Between 8 and 11 you can't go anywhere in the city. There's Picnic, there's Albert Heijn.nl. Everybody's delivering their stuff, like to the hotels, to the horeca, and then there's all the construction vans coming in, they're offloading their tools and stuff that they're going to use for the day. Before then they try to park their car. It takes them about 20 times around the canals to actually find a spot, and then they pay 10 euros an hour. I mean, it's like, so the city is a mess. And I'm not very familiar in The Hague, but Amsterdam, I mean, everybody is just so frustrated in the morning because there's no way you can move around if you're with a car or something with 4 wheels. So when we want to, first of all, we want to make sure that if we promise to people that we deliver between 8 and 10, it's 9 and 11, that we actually deliver. That's one thing, because otherwise people will go back to that old-fashioned rental thing and like, okay, I'll pick it up myself, at least I'm a bit more in control. So we want to have 100% hit rate on the promised time slots, which we are actually hitting at the moment. Second is, I don't want to make this city even worse than it already was. So, and the bikes, they're big, but they're bikes, so you can park them anywhere, you can park them on the sides, so cars can still drive, people on bicycles can still move when I park our bikes on the side of the road. yeah, and I think for us it's a great marketing tool. They're all branded and people see it and people get, we have on the top of it, we have BIYU.nl, so people who look down and like, hey, interesting, what's that? So
nice.
I think it works well for us.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And then I guess going back a bit in time in your
Yeah.
journey, because looking at your LinkedIn, it seems that you just started entrepreneurship like straight away from after the study. How old were you at your first startup?
22 or 23.
Mm-hmm.
I think 23. I started with Smart Haven, together with a few other guys here in Amsterdam. Some of which are still also way knees deep in the tech scene.
Mm-hmm.
So we met during our studies, and from very early on we were talking about having our own business, and I've always been very entrepreneurial, always thinking about new ideas and products and little businesses, and then I think the timing was perfect. So this was in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we decided early 1999 to actually go and do it. So we had to make sure that we had some money, and we had to find an office, and we had to find a few people that wanted to join us. But so we met during Thursday afternoon drinks at the university. So there was Joost, for example, Joost van der Weijert, who was co-founder of Bugs. So he was studying artificial intelligence, KI, kunstmatige intelligentie, together with Leonard Wolters, who is the founder of Crowbox. And then we had a few other people joining, and we sort of had an idea like, okay, let's talk about it. So we had weekly meetings, and then suddenly this whole internet thing started, right? So this was 98, 99. Suddenly the internet was the big new promise, and everything was going digital. And they expected that to happen in 4 years. Now, it took a little bit longer than 4 years, but I think we're now where we thought we would be in 2002. So the timing was there. There was venture capital. I mean, I think before that nobody knew what it was. Maybe in the Silicon Valley they did, but in Amsterdam we didn't. So there was suddenly Twinning Center. You had New Economy. You had all these larger PE companies that went into early stage funding. So let's say moving into venture capital. We had a very interesting team of people, and we managed to get our funding from Twinning and New Economy at the time. So Twinning was famous because Roel Pieper was there, and Roel Pieper was like the crown prince at Philips at one point in time, and Philips was still a big consumer brand. And so we had, the timing was perfect. So the internet was booming. We were young and ambitious, and we had an idea, and we just wanted to make it happen. And the idea was to make searching on the internet, that we weren't the only ones, obviously, easier. And we worked out a system together with software that we licensed from Trillion, from Christine Karman back in the days. That you could type in search terms or queries that you wanted to search for on the internet, and you could then log out, and your profile would roam the internet and would meet with like-minded profiles who had similar search terms, so that you would be able to share information from like-minded profiles with yourselves. And super. I mean, this was like when we were still on the copper modems, like that sort of stuff. So of course the internet wasn't fast enough for this, and there were lots of other. But we had a dream, and we had people who believed in our dream. So we started Smart Haven, and we had the first venture capital in, and then we grew the company. We hired amazing people, really amazing people. And then we got another huge round of funding in, I think it was NIB, private equity, joining the round. So they were big guys, established guys from The Hague, I think, right? NIB, Nederlandse Investeringsbank. Yeah. Originally, their office at that time was in Amsterdam. And it was a great ride. But then, of course, at the same speed as the internet rose to like unprecedented heights, it was like when it was over. And this was in 2002, and it was like, seriously guys, it was like in 3 months time or less, everything changed, like boom, to the other side. Now, of course, you know, you don't whine and complain, because we also enjoyed it when it went from nothing to everything. So, you know, if it goes back, you don't start whining and complaining. And so we just tried to make the best of it, right? So we reorganized the company, had to lay off a lot of people, which was terrible. And I was 25 at the time. So, I mean, what did I know?
Yeah.
Nothing, right? So that was a tough learning. But you know, in the end, we sold the company to Quote Media Holding, company of Maarten van der Biegelaar. Not the Quote magazine, but he had a bigger holding company on top of that. And yeah, that was the end of Smart Haven. But that was 3 years of like rocket speed, so much fun, so many things learned, and I mean, seen great stuff, and I've had to do horrible stuff, laying off people, but it was really nice because the team, I mean, they're still. This is how long ago? This is 20 years ago. You know, I still talk to most, not all, but to a large chunk of those people. You know, we're still in touch, and we still have this joint journey that, you know, we were all young, we didn't know anything, but we tried, we succeeded a little bit at one point, and then we miserably failed. But it was a fantastic ride.
For the first one, it's not so bad. Huh?
Yeah, no, it was like and what did we know, right? I mean, the business plan, I still have it somewhere. It was it was fun. Yeah. It was fun.
And how did you get yourself together to start another venture?
Yeah, so because I was the CEO of the company, the new owner said, you know, I want you there, because if there's something irregular, like if there's dead bodies in the closet basically that fall out, then I want you there. And so I think for 6 months I joined. I had to go with the company, which was also good, and I very much liked it because it was a bit more of a quiet time. And then I bumped into the Invention Group. It was called. It was a sort of agency where they had a lot of inventors or product guys, you know, pitching new products, and then they would either say, okay, we like it, and they would find somebody who would lead out on the idea. And they got this invention in from a product developer who developed a low voltage, low power DC-DC converter. In other words, he was able to charge a battery, a lithium-ion battery, from a very, very low current in a very efficient way. So usually you need a bit of current, and then you convert it into charge current for the battery. And that current in his invention, in his product, could be so low that actually with a solar cell of, let's say, 5 by 5 centimeters under normal light conditions, so not in full sun but in normal daylight conditions, you would still be able to charge a lithium-ion battery. So my immediate thought was, holy shit, wow, imagine we can get this on mobile phones, and we could bring these mobile phones to Africa and India, where suddenly you had these networks, but there was no power, right? So there was 3G at the time, and later on 4 and 5G, but there was no power. So there was such an incredible, good sort of idea that when we talked about it, and when I started talking to the product inventor, we decided, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's go for it. So I went full in, like I always do. When I believe in something, then I go. And that was that ride was in the end 11 years, but it's been the ride of my life, because it's changed my life completely. Because 5 years into the company, 6 years into the company, we moved the company to Asia, to Hong Kong. So me and my wife and my son, who was then a couple of months old, we moved to Hong Kong just to set up the office there. That was the idea for a year, 1.5 years, and 10 years later I came back. So that's been it's been a huge, turning point. Not necessarily a turning point, but it's been an incredibly important time of my life. My daughter was born there. My son and my daughter grew up there, and we came back in 2019. But back to so when I started to really understand the technology, not yet the hardware, but the principle of the technology, I really fell in love with the idea, and we went full in. And the first thing that you want to do, of course, is go and talk to the manufacturers of mobile phones, right? Because that was the end goal. So let's go there immediately. So we had an engineering department that was outside the company, so it's outsourced. So we made a few demos, and we flew into Nokia, Motorola, later on also Samsung, and they were the market at the time. Especially, I think Nokia was 80% of the market or something. So it was not like now that there's plenty of manufacturers, although market shares are probably still very biased towards one or two suppliers. But so we went there and we pitched the technology, and we showed them how great it was, and we could compare it to other things, and like the performance was like. But then, in my opinion, I thought 2 by 5 centimeters, so 10 square centimeters, a printed circuit board with some components on it. I thought it was very small. But the guys at Motorola and Nokia was like, dude, phones need to become smaller, not bigger. So this is not going to work in our phones. And I was like, but it's very small. It's like, no, this is never going to go in our mobile phones because it's too big and it's making them. That was hard because that was the sort of the dream at the start, and then you start to think about, okay, so if it needs to be smaller, then there's one solution, and that is make a single chip solution out of this printed circuit board, and if you have a single chip solution that is, let's say, 8 by 8 millimeters and 2 millimeters, then they can't tell you that it's too big anymore, right? But that is $2-3 million US down the line. And it's not easy to make your own chip design. So we decided to try a few other markets and prove that the technology is indeed superior to any other technologies out there before we look back into going into mobile phones. So that's what we did. So we started selling the technology to lighting companies, mainly in Asia, also a few in the Netherlands and in Europe, and we tried like a gazillion of things, and got good traction, and I think we got market validation of the technology. And then in 2007, we raised funding at Janivo. It's the family trust. I think they were maybe you remember that TomTom. I'm pretty sure you know the company, right? So they were one of the biggest investors in TomTom, and I think they were also big in Vredestein. So traditional, but also looking for some earlier stage investments, and we got in with them, and with the money that we raised from them, there was 5-6 million euros. We were able to actually start to make our own chip solution, our own single chip solution. So we worked together with EM Micro, part of the Schwarz Group in Switzerland, and together with the University in Leuven in Belgium, and we managed to make our own chip, which was, I'm not saying it's, we didn't invent flying to Mars, but that was pretty freaking high tech, I must say. It was really cool. And we got into ZTE's mobile phones for emerging markets. And ZTE, at that time, this is 2008, nobody has ever heard of ZTE. Maybe if you are a nerd, you looked on the bottom of your router. This was when Chinese routers were still common ground in these days. I don't think a lot of people want them, but same as Huawei, by the way. I mean, Also there, they were neighbors in Shenzhen where we always went. But we got ZTE, which was the number 3 in handset volume, not in revenue, not in handset revenue, but volume. So that was a big fish, and that started to take off quickly. And that's when I moved the company or the operations to Hong Kong, because our main seat remained here in Amsterdam. Yeah, that was a fantastic ride, because suddenly we were in mobile phones that you saw in South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, also in India, Vietnam to a lesser extent, Thailand. I mean, they were everywhere. We sold like tens of millions of chips to this company, which was fantastic. But of course, our goal was to, go from tier B, maybe C, to tier A. So we would still aim for Samsung and for Apple at the time, because when we started the company, there was no Apple. So there was no way. But so we had many meetings in Apple in Cupertino. I actually saw Steve Jobs once arriving in his 500 SL. Really fun. But we never got through. We had like serious design discussions about how to design it in. But I think they were looking at, okay, the next thing is not solar, it's a better camera, or it's an MP3 player, or so after a few years we saw the demand just dropping at ZTE and the smaller suppliers, as manufacturers, and we weren't able to get that curve up again with a Samsung or with an Apple or with a Motorola. After 11 years doing exactly the same, it moved from a printed circuit board to a single chip solution, but the pitch was exactly the same. We had a new company name and a new color, but it was, if you would peel all that off, I'd been pitching the same technology, the same product for 11 years. I mean, I needed something new, because I was just tired, I think. And I also had the feeling that I was on the autopilot, and I thought I was way too young to be on the autopilot. So, so I came to the conclusion that, the best thing for me and also for the company was to part ways, which we did in 2013. And then I was called by, so in that company it was initially called True Solar Autonomy, and then later on we rebranded to Intivation. Inti is the god of the sun in the old Inca Empire, I think. So that's where the name came from, because we did everything with solar. One of the previous supervisory board members was an Irish entrepreneur, and he set up a new business after he left Intivation. It was called Brandtown, and he called me around the same time and said, hey, I raised funding to launch Brandtown in Asia with Unilever. I heard that you're in the market. Are you willing to give it a try? And I think within a couple of days we sorted out that we were going to do that. And then suddenly I was working for a boss. So that was my first non-entrepreneurial thing. It was very entrepreneurial. It was maybe more entrepreneurial than all the other things that I had done. But I wasn't the final decision maker because it was an Irish company, so everybody was in Ireland. But I was the first, I think, the COO for Asia, and then later on I became the CEO for Asia. So I was just responsible for all the offices in Asia. There was no office when I started, and we ended in 2017 with 7 offices, with nearly 30 people, and with double-digit million revenue. So we did something well there. Unfortunately, the company didn't succeed to get into the next envelope curve. So I had a really rough 2017. I actually came back to Holland for a couple of months with my family because Hong Kong is expensive. Not sure if you've ever been there, but if if you have 2 kids that go to school and you have a house that you have to pay yourself, that's 10,000 euros down. And then you didn't even have 1 peanut butter sandwich, as I always said. So it was a bit easier and also relaxed money-wise to go back to the Netherlands and make it a prolonged holiday and figure out, okay, what's the next step. And I think both my wife and myself, and also the kids, they were not ready to move back to Holland. Although I sort of got my first actually quite nice. It was summer. It was a nice summer, and I think Amsterdam, in specific, with the Netherlands itself during summertime, are great. So we went back to Asia. I started to work for a company very similar to Brentone, but then New York, Philippines-based, Manila-based. I found it very hard after being in the Netherlands for 5 months with my family to be going back to Asia and be away from the family for 6 days out of the 7. Spending a lot of time on my own in Manila wasn't making me happy at all. I was earning a truckload of money, but it was just not good. It felt really, felt a bit homesick maybe. So we decided to shake hands, and after 6 months I basically came back to Hong Kong, and I ended up in coffee.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that was a very unexpected turn of the cards, but it was super interesting because it was my first real direct B2C play. In the end, you most of the time make something for end customers, but this was like direct. And what I also found extremely interesting is that it's a very cash flow driven business. It's the same as the supermarket. If you want to buy coffee, you pay for it, and you pay immediately, not like in 90 days or 120 days. Because with Brentone, for example, we had our main customer was Unilever, global, and even after 120 days, you had to call them to please pay the bills. So, and then suddenly I was in a business where everybody who bought something immediately paid. I'm not sure how that is for you guys, but I find that amazing and it was really an eye opener. I'd never experienced that, and how old was I? This was in 2018, so I was 43. First time that I actually experienced that if you sell something that people, and it creates an enormous opportunity because you have, and we had a lot of shops and a lot of restaurants, and so there was a lot of cash flow, and that opens up like a truckload of opportunities to get bank funding for opening new stuff. So we didn't have to go to venture capital because there was just truckloads of cash coming in every day. Directly, real in the register. So it was a fantastic ride, but it was also very difficult for me to, especially maybe with Dutch people and in my case a Hong Kong family. Was a lot of things that it schuurde. It was itchy.
So many clashes, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it was time to go back to Holland. So I thought this was the time. Also because my kids were at an age where they would still be able to go to a Dutch primary school, naar een basisschool. Because I didn't want them to go into the international school stream here, because that's I think then you're in Holland, but you're not really in Holland. I really wanted them to come home with a bloody nose and a blue eye every now and then, to get a bit streetwise, because where they grew up in Hong Kong, it was super protected, and it was a bubble, and it's not how real life is. And then here I did a few different bits and pieces until Martijn, my co-founder in BIYU, called me, and he says, Frans, I heard you're back in Holland. And Martijn and I met 20 years ago. We had one meeting together at Samsung. He was selling mobile phone games on those kind of Snake kind of things to Samsung, and which he did very successfully with Overloaded. So he introduced me to something. That's how we met, and we stayed in touch a little bit. So I knew a little bit what he was doing with Fuga and things. And then suddenly he completely out of the blue, he called me and said, "Frans, I have this idea. I want to build a Netflix of products. I have a brainstorm next week. Can you join?" And this was right when COVID hit. And I was there. There were like 5 or 6 other people, and there were a few people who dialed in from Australia, Paris, London, and I was really like, "Wow, holy shit, this is nice." And he started telling about this idea, which is now BIYU, and it sort of sticked with me, right? I was like, "Wow, yeah, I can see this work." So we decided to have a few more meetings, just the two of us, in the weeks after, and I was very interested because Martijn, he was the founder of Fuga, and Fuga is the royalty rights distribution management platform behind Spotify and iTunes Music. So of course you have the Rihannas and the Taylor Swifts, they have it all sorted out, but there's like this huge long tail of millions and millions of songs of smaller artists that are not represented by a record company that do that collection. So all their songs are, tunneled, or all the revenues that if you listen to one of those songs on Spotify, then that cent or that 10 cents that gets distributed, every region. You have a writer, copywriter, you have an artist, you have all these different right holders to a certain piece of music, to a certain file. And basically he started building that when music was about to go from having on a piece of hardware to streaming. And at the time when he was starting with Fuga, you had Napster and of course all the record labels, the first thing they wanted to do, sue Napster. But of course, once people got the hack of it and got the hack of like, wow, so I can actually listen to the track that I want instead of paying 40 euros, because we were like screwed big time. When we found out that you could actually stream it, that was like revolution. So you can kill Napster, but there was something else popping up. So in the end, right there in that time, Martijn was there he said, "But guys, people are willing to pay for music. You just have to make it seamless for them. Then they will. Everybody wants this artist to be alive next week or next year or whatever, because they love their music." And this is basically what we're doing with BIYU. So we're going to the manufacturers and saying, we know this is maybe not what you want to hear, that you're going to only produce 10,000 of these instead of 100,000. But we're going to help you to make more money on the 10,000 than you make on the hundreds of thousands. And it's the same sort of thing that's happening that he experienced there. So for me, that was a super relevant and important experience, because I thought, shit, if there's one guy here in the Netherlands that understands how hard it is, and this is not going to be like a 2-year trick pony that we're going to get this. This is a marathon. That's what we always tell each other, Martijn. We're in the marathon. We have done the first 5-6K. We've got 36 fucking kilometers to go, right? So, and it's tough. BIYU is probably, it's very difficult, because there need to be a lot of things need to be exactly there in order to make this fly. We always have hubs, we have hardware, we have bikes, we have riders, we have hub managers. This is a relatively difficult, complex play, but when you get this done, oh my God, this can be so incredibly big. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's really amazing. And they decided to do everything in-house as well.
Everything in-house, yeah. Because and that is maybe because Martijn and I we've done it a few times before. So it was tough to find good people, but we are now at the point where I can say that this has been so much worth taking that extra effort and spending that extra money then, because now is the payback time, basically. Because if we have an issue, it's like boom, 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 ticketed, staging, testing, live.
Pretty cool. And your latest investment round was with Urban Impact Ventures and also Cedars, yeah? Yeah,
so we had Cedars, Urban Impact Ventures, Arquette Ventures, and we had a whole bunch of angels joining. and we are about to announce, I can't say it, next week, some additional. So we had a few more people who wanted to join. So we're signing it next week, Tuesday or Wednesday.
Really cool. Congrats.
Yeah.
And how was it? Because I guess Seeders and the venture capitalists is two different things.
Yeah.
How did you do both of them?
Early this year was tough for us. When we came out of the December month, which was like our busiest month to date, there was still growth, but it wasn't the growth that we saw during October, November, December. So by the end of January, early February, I started to get really worried because this was not the growth that we were expecting. And at the same time, when we saw the growth coming in October, November, we started to invest because we're like, shit, if this is going to continue, we need more people. We need to start hiring them now and not wait till the water is still here. So it was a fairly it was a big shit show, right? Your costs were going through the roof, and then suddenly your growth is not there. So early this year in February, March, we had to just say goodbye to a lot of people that we hired, and also some people that had been with us for a bit of time, and we had a existential crisis, like shit. That's when we started to talk again to our customers, and we eventually pivoted to rental without membership. And we did that super quickly. Again, the core team was there, so they had to build this whole, not rental with membership, but with a PPU pricing and with 4-hour pricing, 12-hour, 24, and now 48. So they had to basically rebuild a whole, I don't know how much code, but a lot of code. So right in that time, Martijn and myself were looking at each other and said, okay, this is all hands on deck. We need to explore any potential way to raise the money to actually then go and check if what we've built, the rental without membership, and this was all happening in March, April. So we were like, okay, so in June we will be able to launch it and see whether it flies. But we need time to make it fly, because otherwise we're building it. So we just went to explore different routes, and we ended up doing both, and it grew out of a crisis, I would say. Like, okay, if this doesn't work, then we focus on this. If this doesn't work, we do this, and we managed to get both off the ground, fortunately. So what I found extremely interesting about the Seeders thing, which I don't think we realized up front, is that we had a lot of customers, members, joining this round, which was, I think the biggest surprise, and I think that was really, really good. I would say the majority of that, the Seeders proceeds came from people that are actually a member, which I thought was amazing.
I understand for the investors it's mostly Dutch then.
Yeah, Urban Impact Ventures is, I think it's a Dutch entity, but they are Romanian Dutch. It's a Romanian, their offices, they have an office in Holland, but they also have an office in Romania. Arquette is Dutch, yeah, so I would say that, it's primarily Dutch. However, in the Seeders campaign, there are a few, I think mainly British, because Seeders is British, or is UK based, so they have a huge network within their own sandbox.
And why did you go with the Dutch ones
then?
Did you look abroad as well, or were you
absolutely? Yeah. No, so we looked. We. Okay, so I'm going to be completely open. Yeah. So I think since January last year, January this year, I think we talked to around 85 investors, VCs. Mm-hmm. Some of them were poorly targeted because people say, you really need to talk to them, and then you talk, and then it's not a match. This is not doing B2C and all that sort of stuff. So let's say that of the 64, 60 told us we're not interested. So, and a lot of them were from Germany, Scandinavia. So you have to be able to absorb a lot of no, we're not interested, or oh, we really like your business model, but it's a little bit too early. I'm sure you've heard that before. But please keep us in the loop, because maybe in Series A we are the perfect party for this. Have you experienced that yourself?
Yeah, I guess it means no, basically.
Yeah, means no. Exactly. That's also how we take it. But then 3 hours later you have your next video call with the new investor, and then you have to be like, because if you are going to sit there being disappointed because of what happened in the morning, the guys will smell it. They will see it from the first blink in your eyes on the screen, like, ooh. So we had 60 no's, and we only had a few that actually came on board. And they were, I don't think it's a coincidence, because we are Dutch, of course, so you can in your own language maybe, and understanding the local sort of vibes in Dutch cities is maybe different than it. And on top of that, we have a lot of people in our network that were like, hey, if this is happening, we would like to join. And so they're giving a bit back to the community where they also at one point in time were doing investment rounds with. So yeah, it's a good combination. I'm very happy that we have a few funds on board, because if it remains in the angel sort of sphere, and especially where there's a lot of angels, where there is also some more than just an angel, there's some of them were friends or straight out friends. At one point in time you want to get proof that an outside fund who is doing an actual real DD is coming in. And I think that is what we've proved with this round, is that this is not because BIYU is not there because Frans and Martijn know people that have been successful in the past. Now there's also funds that came in. So I think that is the real, for me that was a very important KPI to hit with this funding. Also because that will help in future funding, because all these companies, of course, they, at one point in time we're going to ask them, do you want to join a next round? So if you can start the next round with some committed already, it's always easier, as you know.
And then the future plans then for you?
By the end of next year, we need to be at 10 hubs, of which Utrecht is there, and we have 2 other locations where we are already talking. We haven't signed an LOI yet, but we know where we go.
For now it's Netherlands.
For now it's the Netherlands, yeah. Initially we had our focus really on Germany, because especially that North Rhine-Westphalia is such a nice area where there's millions of people living on a very dense area. But I think after a lot of discussions, internal and external, I think in Holland there is still a lot to be gained for us. The Hague is definitely on the agenda. Almere, Utrecht, Haarlem, Amersfoort, Groningen, Eindhoven. There's a lot of business for us, and we have more and more people, thanks to, for example, podcasts like this, but also press releases. There's lots of people from all over the Netherlands signing up as a registered user. So we can already see in our registered user base where the zip codes are. And we can map, like, okay, if we start here, we have the first couple of hundred members in, because these people have already signed up. Now, of course, not everybody will convert, but it tells you something about the appetite for a service that we have in the different zip code areas.
And what kind of advice do you have, like, for entrepreneurs out there?
Let's see, how can I phrase? So if you look at LinkedIn, or if you look at all these websites about tech startups and the next unicorns and all that jazz. You start if you're sensitive for that, it starts to look around you that the whole world is on the way to become a unicorn. And my experience is that resilience is actually, that's your main skill. You need to don't get disappointed quickly, because there are going to be, if you're considering to start your own company, there's going to be millions of disappointments, bigger and smaller. I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell, and I do think the more you try, the harder you try, the luckier you get. But there is an enormous amount of timing and luck in your in your pitch, in your idea, in your concept, in the face of your company. And I think that is just super important to realize. You know, if you fail, if your business doesn't fly or it's not becoming a unicorn, doesn't mean you're not a failure. I mean, look at me, man. I've tried so many things, and maybe 1 or 2 things really worked out, but there's 20 things that didn't work out. And for me, not thinking like, I'm a failure, or no. I mean, that's just, no, this is normal. If you make it to a unicorn, or if you make it to this super startup that, like for example, like Airbnb, or like everybody in the world is using Uber or whatever, Booking.com in a sort of way, that's like a unique thing, right? And under that surface, there are so many more other things that are also worth being there. And I think that's so the resilience part. And if you're not able to be disappointed, then don't start your entrepreneurial journey.